What is up, YouTube? Your boy is back again with another video. This is 3 disturbing true motel horror stories. Let's get right into this video.
My husband and I had to drive 17 hours last week to North Carolina for a wedding. It was an exhausting week, and we basically spent the entire time rushing from one family gathering to another. We were staying in a motel for the time we were there. We had already been at this motel for a few days by the time the day of the actual wedding rolled around. The day of the wedding was hectic. We were rushing around trying to get ready to leave for the venue. My husband got ready before me so he could do some last-minute things before we had to leave. That left me alone in our motel room to get ready before he returned. It was brutally hot outside, and I decided to do my hair and makeup in just my underwear, so I wouldn't be sweating in my nice dress the whole time. The way this motel was laid out, the sink and mirror were in the general open area of the room, with the toilet and shower in another room. So anyone walking by our room window could see me standing at the mirror. However, I did have the curtains closed.
Okay.
But these curtains were a little bit sheer.
I was about to say, you are absolutely crazy if you but if you're doing your makeup in your underwear. I was about to say, that's crazy if you were to be doing that with the curtains not closed.
So you could technically see the shadow of someone walking by on the outside, or could maybe see the silhouette of me inside the room. I was curling my hair in the mirror when I noticed the silhouette of a man walking by my room window. As he's passing my window, I see him stop and start trying to look into my window. At first I thought it was my husband trying to see if I was ready, so I paid no attention to it. But the longer the guy stood there, bobbing his head around trying to get a better look through the curtains, I began to realize it was not my husband, because obviously, why wouldn't he just come in? Now I'm starting to get a little freaked out. Before I could do anything though, I watch as this guy starts to go for my room door. My utter shock and horror came when he actually was able to open the door and walked inside. Before my husband left, he forgot to pull the door shut all the way till it clicked into its lock. He was very upset at himself when I told him this later.
So, not only are you in just your underwear and bra, or I don't know if he said bra or not, but not only are you just doing that, just in your underwear, the guy walks in, right? Why the fuck did you not double check the door? You or your husband, you didn't double check the door before he left? That's the first thing I'm gonna do. Because if I'm home alone, right? If I'm alone in this hotel room, right? Let's say, because it's hot outside, right? Let's say I'm walking around booty ball ass naked, right? I'm making sure that door is closed and locked all the way before I just start undressing myself. Because if you think I'm about to catch someone else looking at me naked, you got another thing coming, all right? Like, here's a little funny story that I said, hey, if anybody ever breaks into my house, if I'm just booty butt naked, you can't rob anyone if they're naked, especially if you're a guy. You're not gonna wrestle a guy that's naked. I'm just saying. If I have no time, alright, if I absolutely have zero time to put any clothes on, I will fight him. Because he can't fight me back, because he would not want to. I'm just saying. Alright, that's just me. But that's crazy. But I don't know. It's like this situation is kind of crazy, honestly.
So now I am face to face with this man, who's at least 6 feet tall, and standing in my room.
No.
I thought to myself, this is it. He's going to attack you. That's a very scary realization to have. I also thought to myself, you're going to have to burn his eye sockets out with this curling iron if you want to survive. For a few seconds, probably only a second or two, but it felt a lot longer, he just stood there staring at me like I was a piece of meat and he was starving, ready to pounce on me like prey. He then began to smile the most evil-looking, toothy grin I've ever seen, and started mumbling something under his breath. I couldn't make out what he was saying completely, but I did make out the words, "pretty lady," and "come here."
Oh, fuck.
I don't know if it was the fight or flight response, but I suddenly got pissed, and I charged towards him, ready to strike him with my hot curling iron. I screamed as loud as I could, "Get the fuck out of here!" It must have startled him because he jumped back out onto the balcony of the motel.
I would have pushed him off
I
the
saw
balcony.
this as my chance, and I ran for the door.
Murder.
I luckily was able to get to the door and slam it shut right before he was about to make his second attempt at entering inside. I immediately collapsed on the floor sobbing. I literally was too scared to move from that spot until my husband came back about 15 minutes later. I told him the whole thing and he was freaked out. He initially wanted to find the guy so he could beat the shit out of him, but I refused to let him leave my side. He must have apologized 1,000 times during the rest of our trip for not making sure that the door was locked before leaving. But I told him that the day and that whole trip was so rushed I could see how it happened. We went to the motel management and told them the whole story. The police were obviously called and I gave them a description of the guy so they could see if it was someone who was staying in the motel. After going around to the few motel occupants, they said no one matched his description and concluded he wasn't staying there. Obviously, we were late to the wedding that day, and the whole experience just ruined what should have been a happy time. We planned on staying another day before our long drive home, but we both just wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. We skipped most of the reception, went back to the motel, packed up and left. I am usually always so vigilant with locking my doors, especially when I'm home alone. Just goes to show you, all it takes is that one time you forget to check your locks, and that certain unwanted guest is inviting themselves in.
Huh?
I was about 10, possibly 11 when my mom found a job working as a live-in manager to a quaint little motel at the end of my town. She took the job, we packed up and left my childhood home. When we first moved in, it was a disaster. Holes everywhere, certain parts of the house smelled horrible. We later learned this was because the old manager, Steve, was a druggie, and his wife was making and dealing meth out of there. Couple months into living there, we had sort of fixed the place up and made it livable. At this point, my mom was working full-time at the desk. We had mostly stayed towards the back of the house because of the odd setup. The way the front desk where you check in is laid out was basically in our living room. It was a tiny, cramped room with just the desk on one side and a door on the other, which led to our living room. A lot, and I mean a lot of people decided to just open that door whenever they pleased, and often got a view of whatever video game my brother and I were playing. This, as a kid, already freaked me out, and because of the motel's past, many meth heads came by looking for Steve and would walk right in when they didn't believe my mom when she said they didn't work and live there any longer. One time, during summer break a year or two after we moved in, I decided to stay up all night and play video games. I made a little nest in the living room and made myself comfy. It was around 1 a.m. after hours of Skyrim when I started to hear weird noises. Usually, if my mom knew a regular would be late, she would leave a key in an envelope for them, which looking back doesn't seem smart at all. I heard talking, it sounded like two men speaking a different language. I figured that's what they were doing and would leave in a second, but they never did. The talking continued for 10 minutes before I started to hear them pull on the door. First it was gentle, as if they were testing it. As they continued, it seemed to get more frantic and I could almost hear grunting. Soon it was full-on banging on the door. I was confident my parents would hear it, but their room was all the way in the back of the house, which was about 3 hallways down, so after a minute I figured I was screwed and probably going to die. I was a super paranoid kid. The banging stopped, and after a few seconds, I started to hear tapping at the window behind the desk in the house.
No, thank you.
I saw clearly a head from behind the curtain. The windows were high up, and he looked to be stretching up to get it. He started to yank on the window, trying to break it open. While he was doing this, I saw movement at the screen door in the kitchen. At this point, I was absolutely shitting myself. I was petrified. I'm guessing the guy who was at the desk door had now circled around to the screen door while his buddy was prying at the window. He jiggled the doorknob back and forth, after a second resuming what he was doing earlier, and now banging on that door full force. For some reason, through my fear, I decided to try and be a ninja, to up my sneak level, of course, and Army crawled into the little office part connected to the desk. There was a key drop-off where people could just shove their keys into when they checked out. That was basically just a hole in the wall. I popped up, all while they were still banging on the door, and grabbed a pencil to lift up the flap. I don't know what I expected to see. They were clearly at the side of the house, but I just had a horrible feeling, like I was being surrounded. Turns out I was right. When I lifted it, I saw 2 more men standing at the door, hands in their pockets. I immediately closed it and almost cried. During this, I failed to notice the hallway light turn on and my parents emerged, looking very distraught. As soon as my dad turned on the kitchen light and shouted, "What the fuck?" All the noise stopped and the guys took off running. I could hear one of them shout something and then nothing, just complete silence.
Fuck you, bitch.
After I told my parents what happened the best I could through hysterics, they called the police. The police showed about an hour later and took the report. It didn't seem like this happened to anyone else in the town, but they seemed to think it was some Mexican workers who came up for the hops farms and maybe didn't understand we were closed. I don't know, it seems like they were just kind of race blaming, but I never really got an explanation of that night. All I know was that they didn't seem friendly, and I don't know what they would have done if they got in.
Damn. Yeah, see, I never...
In the summer of 2004, I was on my first break from college. I had just completed my freshman year, and I was missing being away from my new college friends. One Saturday night in July, my college friend Julianne, from out of town, was having a birthday party. She wanted to invite lots of friends to a motel room for drinking and hanging out. I was kind of a late bloomer and really just started driving my freshman year of college. Back then I was naive and apparently had a look of friendliness.
Hold up. I know it's not, I know it's like an average price for a motel, but like, why are they so expensive though? Even the hotels are expensive. I think like a hotel like that's like closer to me is like $100 for one night. And that's crazy to me. Like, it's so much money for a hotel. Like, I don't know. That's just crazy to me. But I have a funny story about the motel I stayed at before a couple of years ago. But I will say that at the end of this video, because it's a funny story to me. It's pretty hilarious.
And helplessness, as I always tended to have strangers trying to talk to me or come to my aid when I really didn't need anything. I was excited to be going to this motel room party. I arrived in the late evening. It was at a Motel 6 outside of downtown, near an area that used to be a shopping mall, but had just started its descent as a new mall was being put in on the other side of town. I'm thinking she chose that motel due to the price, because it wasn't near our college or near anything that you'd want to be near, unless she planned on doing some shopping the next day. There weren't that many cars at the motel. I got out and went up to the second floor, where her room was located at the corner, near the entrance to the parking lot from the frontage road. There weren't many people in the room, and it was a typical motel room with 2 queen-sized beds, a bathroom, and a TV. I remember taking a beer and having a few sips. I was feeling slightly uncomfortable. That was mostly because the usual college pals weren't there, and we weren't doing our usual thing. Normally my boyfriend and his roommate would be hanging out and we'd watch a weird movie or have an interesting conversation. This time it was just people talking and drinking. Kind of boring for my tastes. Plus, I'm a pretty major introvert. I was kind of looking for an out, and when there was a lull in conversation, I told Julianne and her boyfriend John that I had to go. They walked me to the door, and we said a few goodbyes while we stood on the balcony overlooking the parking lot. While we were talking, a taxi cab pulled up to the motel, right under the balcony where we were standing. I looked down as a man got out of the back of the cab. The alarming thing was that as soon as he got out, he stood and looked straight up at me, staring.
No.
He had no expression on his face, nor did he make a move to go where he was headed or even to pay the cab driver. The cab took off and he just stood there, staring at me. He began to smile in a very creepy way, like he knew he was scaring me and he enjoyed it. But at the same time, it was like there was no one home in his eyes. He looked at me as if I was the only one there, and as if he expected me. Like in some parallel universe, he was supposed to find me. Like that was his whole night's purpose. It was unnerving, but then he walked off. We kind of joked about it, and then I went down to get into my car. I unlocked my door, put my purse in the passenger seat, and just as I did that, a car pulled up right behind my car as if to block my exit. I looked over, and it was that man who got out of the cab. He apparently had a car, and as soon as he left from staring at me, he got in and followed me to where my car was. He just parked there and was staring at me with the same creepy smile on his face, but with no other indication of any self-awareness. The only thing I could think to do was to run back up to the party. Unfortunately, I left my purse in the passenger seat and left my door unlocked because I was so freaked out that I just wanted to get as far away from this man as possible. I knocked on the door and told my friend and her boyfriend. John came out to the balcony with me and the car was still there. We called the hotel lobby and asked for them to send the security guard to escort me to my car. The guard came by, an overweight fellow who looked really unhappy to be there. He just knocked on the motel door, and he didn't even walk me down. He barely even said anything. He just stood on the balcony looking down. I got tired of the situation, and since the creeper's car was gone, I decided to just race down and get in my car and leave. John walked me to my car though, since the security guard was being a weirdo. I got in, started it, and zoomed out of there as fast as I could before that man showed up again. I did pause in my car to make sure John got back to the room safely before taking off on the frontage road, but my doors were locked and I was ready for imminent exit. This might not seem like much, but the way the man just got out of the cab and looked up at me really freaked me out. It's as if he was coming to the hotel just for me. He wouldn't have been able to see me from his seated position in the cab, which made it even weirder when the first thing he did was turn his head up to me and stare.
Yeah, that's creepy.
He didn't seem to have a room, and I wondered afterwards, if he had a car, why he needed a cab at all. My purse was still in my car with nothing removed from it, so I don't think he was there to rob me. That's what's really scary. That and the fact that he acted like my friends weren't even there. For weeks after, I was shaken by what could have happened if I didn't leave my blocked-in car as soon as possible, and I began to imagine scenarios where he came up to the window. The only imagined scenario that made me feel any safer was if I acted insane. I imagined getting out a knife, but that didn't help. Not until I imagined laughing manically or barking did I feel like he may have backed off. To this day, I carry a knife in my car just in case, but I feel like that may not be the best protection.
Peace on you. But yeah, so that will do it for this little reaction. But it's time for the quick little story about my experience inside a motel. So, alright, it wasn't scary at all. It's just like a funny story that happened to me. I can't get this all the way on screen. Anyways, so I would say about like 2020, I believe it was, or 2000. Yeah, no, I think it's 2020. Yeah, so in high school, I was in this group called Skills USA. And so it's basically like a student-led organization. You know, we go to competitions for like job interviews and like other stuff like that. So I was placed in job interview. My junior and senior year, I had went to these, and I've won at like nationals, and then went to state, I believe it was, or I think it's nationals. And so I went to state 2 years in a row, but just never like went to the higher one, which I forgot what it's called. But anyways, besides the point. So my senior year in high school, we went to our state competition. So we drove, forgot where it was. So we went to this like Red Lion Motel, right, or hotel. So basically, I was the only guy on the team. The rest of it was just female. So I was the only guy. I was the president, and then it's just like 3 or 4 females, me, and then the teacher, and that's it. So it's like, and then the 2 teachers. So basically, at this hotel we were at, I had to share a room with I think 3 other people. To remind you, I was like 6'2" in high school. Like my senior year, I was 6'2". So I had to share a room with 3 other competitors. So now here's the funny thing. I walk in my sleep and I talk in my sleep. So apparently, one night when I was like passed out, this one of my roommates. So he thought everybody in the room was like completely blacked out. So he had told me that he had snuck a girl in, and they were like doing the do inside the bathroom. So he told me that I scared the shit out of him last night because I had gotten up and just yelled, "Hey!" And then they just ran out the room apparently. And I was like, because the next morning when I woke up, he was like, "Bro, you scared the shit out of me last night." I was like, "What do you mean? I was passed out the entire night." He was like, "No, because you stood up and you pointed towards the front door and said, 'Hey, get out.'" And I'm just like, I don't remember doing that. And so it's just funny how, because I know I sleepwalk, but I didn't know that what was happening at the time. So I had just woken up, so I was like trying to get my brain put together. When he told me that, I started laughing after. I was like, "Yeah, bro, my bad. I sleepwalk." And it's like, apparently I sleep talk sometimes too, but I just didn't know. So I just thought that was a little funny story I want to share with you guys. But yeah, so that will do it for this video. If you guys liked it, subscribe, like, comment down below. Tell me what videos you want to see more out of me. Or if you guys just want to hear like personal stories of mine, like, you can ask me anything in the comment and I will make a video on it. If you guys want any personal stories, I'm down to share it. Because as you know, on this channel. I'm 100% like uncut, real person. Like I don't tell lies, and like when I'm reacting, these are my actual reactions. I'm not faking reactions. So, like I said, that will do it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did, I'm already going through this whole thing, but I will see you guys in the next one. Cause your boy's out. Peace.